Cleopatra Selene, the last scion of a line drenched in blood, ambition, and forbidden love, was a queen born into the shadows. Her story was never meant for the scribes of history. It was whispered behind veils, recorded only in the faint scratches of palace ledgers and the hushed rumors of Rome. She bore the weight of her lineage with a grace that masked a mind sharpened by paranoia and secrecy. For in the courts of empires, beauty was a weapon, and love was often the silent harbinger of death. From the moment she inherited the throne, Cleopatra Selene understood that ruling was not a matter of crown or decree. It was a battlefield of whispers. Her mother, Cleopatra VII, had been a master of manipulation and seduction, weaving alliances with Caesar and Mark Antony, only to be undone by betrayal and fire. Her father, Mark Antony, had been a general consumed by passion and politics, leaving behind a legacy of fragile power that her enemies were eager to exploit. Selene grew up learning to see danger not in the obvious enemies, but in the smiles, the folded hands, and the subtle tilt of a head. By the time she ascended to her kingdom in Mauritania, Selene's mind had become a labyrinth of suspicion and strategy. Every guest at court, every foreign envoy, even her closest advisors were potential threats. Her advisors whispered of potential Roman interference, while palace guards spoke of secret plots among the nobles. Selene's nights were often sleepless, spent pacing the marbled corridors of her palace, listening to the distant clatter of the city, imagining shadows forming conspiracies in the flickering torchlight. Every shadow was a spy. Every silence was a betrayal waiting to strike. Yet, it was not just politics that haunted her. It was her own heart, a heart trapped between desire and duty. Cleopatra Selene was a woman who felt deeply, yet could not allow herself the luxury of trust. She was haunted by visions of a future that seemed always one step away from ruin. She longed for connection, for someone who could see the fragile human behind the regal mask, but the very nature of her power made such intimacy dangerous. Lovers came and went, some drawn by ambition, others by the perilous allure of her bloodline. She learned quickly that even affection could be weaponized against her. It was in this climate of perpetual vigilance that Selene encountered Juba II, a man whose ambition was rivaled only by his cunning. Their marriage was arranged to secure political alliances, yet it was marked by subtle tension, each aware of the other's capacity for both loyalty and betrayal. In public, they presented a perfect union, a picture of regal harmony that masked a private world of quiet calculation and unspoken fear. But behind closed doors, the palace corridors were filled with secrets, and among them, one would grow so perilous it would consume the queen entirely. The first whispers of her secret pregnancy arrived as faint tremors in the court. No one saw the signs. Selene had learned to conceal her body with the artful draping of robes and the careful positioning in public appearances, but her inner circle sensed a subtle shift. Her mood flickered unpredictably between radiant joy and profound melancholy, a duality that only deepened the court's curiosity and concern. Few dared speak of it, fearing the queen's wrath, yet the palace itself seemed to lean in, as if the walls themselves were aware of the hidden life growing within her. Selene's pregnancy was not a matter of celebration. In her world, bearing an heir was both blessing and curse, for it invited the gaze of enemies eager to manipulate or destroy her bloodline. She knew that if Rome discovered her secret, her child could be claimed, used, or even extinguished to secure political leverage. Each day, she moved like a shadow in her own palace, careful to avoid scrutiny, careful to ensure that the child growing within her remained invisible to all but herself, and the few loyal servants she trusted implicitly. And yet, even as she concealed this secret, the psychological toll was mounting. Selene's mind, always a web of strategy and suspicion, began to fracture under the weight of what she carried. She oscillated between elation at the thought of her unborn child and terror at the consequences of exposure. Nightmares became frequent, vivid, and merciless. She dreamt of Rome's legions storming her palace, of her advisors betraying her with poisoned smiles, of her child taken from her arms before it drew breath. She woke, drenched in sweat, the faint glow of dawn casting her own shadow across the chamber, a shadow that seemed almost to whisper, "Beware, beware, your secret is not safe." Even her husband, Juba II, who had once been her confidant, began to feel the strain. The tension between them was silent but palpable, a tension born not of dislike, but of the unspoken terror that surrounded Selene's pregnancy. He noticed the queen's growing fragility, the meticulous care with which she avoided any public suspicion, the sleepless nights spent pacing, the subtle ways she fortified her rooms against unseen threats. And though he loved her, he could not penetrate the walls she had erected around herself, walls built from fear, power, and the legacy of a mother who had once ruled the world with equal parts charm and ruthlessness. Rumors began to spread, as they always do in palaces where the air is thick with intrigue. Servants spoke in hushed tones about the queen's sudden absences, about the soft glow of candlelight in chambers where no visitor should be, about the rare moments when her face, usually calm and composed, betrayed the storm within. Even distant diplomats began to speculate, though none dared confront her directly. The court's atmosphere grew charged, each smile and gesture now a potential clue in a game Selene was unwilling to play. Selene herself became a prisoner of her secret. Her pregnancy, while joyous in theory, became a catalyst for isolation, a lens through which she viewed every interaction with suspicion. The palace, once a place of power and prestige, became a maze of silent threats. Every footstep in the corridor could herald a spy. Every rustle of silk could be a whisper of betrayal. She found herself planning contingencies for every imaginable threat to her child, as if sheer will could ward off the inevitable forces of history and politics that had already claimed so much from her family. It was in these shadows that Cleopatra Selene's brilliance and vulnerability coexisted in a delicate, terrifying balance. She was a queen trained to command armies and sway nations, yet she was utterly powerless against the creeping vulnerability of carrying life in secret. Every decision became heavier, every moment more charged with unseen risk. The court continued its dance of diplomacy and subterfuge, unaware that the greatest intrigue was not political, but profoundly human. A mother's secret, a life hidden from the world, and the haunting knowledge that discovery could mean not just her downfall, but the end of a lineage that had endured centuries of bloodshed, ambition, and desire. The tension reached a point where even the queen's most trusted allies sensed the impending crisis. Servants whispered warnings, advisors offered veiled counsel, and the palace itself seemed to hold its breath. Selene's own body betrayed her fatigue, her sleepless nights leaving faint shadows beneath her eyes, a fragile reminder that even queens are mortal, and that even power cannot shield one from the most intimate vulnerabilities. In this crucible of secrecy, fear, and ambition, Cleopatra Selene's story was poised to take a turn that would etch her name into the annals of tragedy. The court, the city, the world beyond her palace walls All were oblivious to the drama unfolding in the queen's chambers. Yet in those quiet halls, history was being written not with ink or decree, but in the measured steps of a woman balancing life, death, and the weight of a secret pregnancy that threatened to consume her entirely. In these shadows, Cleopatra Selene moved like a specter, beautiful, brilliant, and terrifyingly human, poised on the edge of a destiny that would leave the world both awed and mournful. The days in Cleopatra, Selene's palace grew heavier, each one a measured balance between concealment and exposure. The secret she carried was no longer merely a private concern. It had become a living, breathing entity that dominated her every thought. The pregnancy, hidden from all but her closest confidants, transformed her daily life into an intricate choreography of avoidance and pretense. Each meal, each council meeting, each appearance before her people was carefully staged, a performance designed to maintain the illusion of normalcy, while the most intimate truth of her existence remained buried beneath layers of secrecy. Yet secrecy is fragile, especially in a court teeming with ambition. Courtiers with keen eyes began to notice subtle changes: the way Selene's robes shifted around her waist, the rare pauses in her stride, the occasional wincing when she thought herself unseen. Whispers that might once have been dismissed now carried weight, spreading like shadows through the corridors. And while her advisors remained outwardly loyal, loyalty in the palace was never absolute. Each noble harbored ambitions that could intersect disastrously with the queen's hidden state, and the quiet threat of betrayal loomed over every conversation. Selene's husband, Juba II, remained an enigma in this unfolding drama. He was devoted, yet his devotion was tempered by the pressures of his own position. He had been raised to navigate the delicate balance between allegiance to Rome and the autonomy of Mauritania, and the queen's secret only complicated his political calculations. He sensed the weight pressing down on Selene, the sleepless nights, the ever-present tension, yet he struggled to penetrate the walls she had meticulously constructed. Even love, in this palace of shadows, was filtered through suspicion and necessity. The queen's mind, sharpened by decades of court intrigue, now wrestled with a far more dangerous opponent: her own fear. Fear is a subtle predator, one that feeds on hesitation and doubt. Selene found herself imagining betrayals that may never occur, envisioning spies in every shadow, and rehearsing responses to threats both real and imagined. Her sleep became a fragmented landscape of terror and anticipation. Dreams of discovery plagued her, each more vivid than the last. Roman envoys storming her chambers, her advisors conspiring with hidden daggers, her child snatched away before it drew breath. Even the walls of her palace, adorned with frescoes depicting triumph and legacy, seemed to close in, reminding her that history was a ruthless spectator. It was during one of these nights that the first tangible sign of danger manifested. A trusted servant, one who had been with Selene since childhood, approached her with trembling hands and downcast eyes. He spoke of unusual inquiries from foreign envoys, subtle questions about the queen's health, and the increasing attentiveness of palace guards who, despite outward loyalty, had begun to murmur among themselves. Selene listened in silence, her face a mask of calm, though inside a storm raged. Each word was a potential warning and a challenge, a reminder that the walls she had built to protect herself and her unborn child were not impenetrable. The tension escalated further when Selene noticed subtle shifts in Juba's demeanor. He grew more distant in public, his smiles more measured, his gestures constrained by invisible calculations. Selene understood the politics at play. Rome's shadow was long, and any hint of weakness could be exploited. But even knowing the reasons did little to quell the rising anxiety that clutched at her heart. Every glance, every word, every movement became a chess piece in a game that could no longer afford mistakes. As the pregnancy progressed, so too did the dangers. Selene became increasingly aware of the physical limitations imposed by her condition, yet she refused to show weakness. She continued to attend council meetings, preside over ceremonies, and meet with ambassadors, all while hiding the life growing within her. The physical strain was relentless. Fatigue and nausea threatened to betray her secret, and each day demanded a meticulous performance of composure. Her body became both sanctuary and liability, a vessel of life that simultaneously inspired awe and required constant concealment. In the palace corridors, whispers mutated into full-blown rumors. Servants exchanged furtive glances, minor incidents were exaggerated, and the court's attention sharpened on every detail. One day, an inexperienced maid accidentally knocked over a tray of documents, revealing correspondence that hinted at Selene's private meetings with her midwife. Though no one could yet discern the truth, the seeds of suspicion had been planted. Selene recognized immediately the precariousness of her situation. A single misstep could unravel the careful web she had spun, and the consequences would be catastrophic. Psychologically, Selene's isolation deepened. She oscillated between determination and despair. Her mind a battlefield where hope and terror waged constant war. The joy of carrying a child, the only potential continuation of her bloodline, was inseparable from the dread of discovery. She found herself obsessively checking corridors for spies, scrutinizing letters for hidden meanings, and interrogating even the most mundane interactions for potential threats. The palace, once a place of power and authority, had become a labyrinth of fear, each corner a potential trap, each smile a mask of treachery. The queen's mental strain began to manifest in subtle physical symptoms. She experienced brief dizziness, palpitations, and unexplained pains, omens she could neither ignore nor reveal. Yet the show had to continue. She adorned herself in elegant robes, held audiences with unwavering poise, and maintained an aura of authority. The court, impressed by her composure, remained oblivious to the invisible storm raging within her. The duality of her existence, grace in public, turmoil in private, was both a survival strategy and a psychological torment, one that sharpened her intellect even as it eroded her inner peace. It was at this fragile moment that betrayal, always lurking in the shadows, began to take shape. A foreign envoy, ostensibly seeking alliance, began probing subtly, asking about the queen's health, commenting on her appearance, hinting at knowledge of her personal affairs. Selene's instincts screamed danger. She recognized the envoy's questions as a test, a delicate probing to determine whether the rumors circulating in Rome held any truth. The tension was unbearable. A high-stakes game where a single slip could expose her secret and imperil not just herself, but the life she carried. To counter these threats, Selene devised a series of elaborate ruses. She staged public appearances with precision, manipulating lighting, angles, and attire to obscure her growing condition. She orchestrated distractions, ensuring that the eyes of the court and the spies they inevitably harbored were diverted from the truth. Each maneuver required careful calculation, yet even the most intricate strategies carried the risk of failure. The weight of constant vigilance, coupled with the physical demands of pregnancy, became an almost unbearable burden. the psychological pressure intensified when Selene's closest confidant, the midwife, confided her concerns about the increasing scrutiny from the palace staff. Selene realized that even the few she trusted could be compromised, willingly or unwittingly, by the ceaseless machinations of those around her. Every whispered conversation, every secret glance, became a potential trigger for disaster. Her paranoia, once a tool for survival, had become a consuming force, threatening to erode the very clarity that had allowed her to maintain control over her life and her kingdom. As the days turned to weeks, Selene's secret became an unspoken tension, a silent predator stalking the halls of the palace. Each encounter, each step, each word was loaded with risk. The queen's body, a vessel of power and vulnerability, symbolized the fragile intersection of life, secrecy, and authority. The court, dazzled by her composure and unaware of the silent drama, continued its routines, while Cleopatra Selene navigated a perilous labyrinth where one miscalculation could destroy everything. And so, the storm gathered, unseen yet inevitable. Selene's secret pregnancy, the life she guarded with every ounce of her being, had become a force that could not remain hidden forever. The palace, the city, the empire beyond, all were unwitting participants in a drama poised to explode. Cleopatra Selene stood at the precipice of revelation, her mind and body pushed to the brink, knowing that the coming days would test the limits of her cunning, her resilience, and the very survival of the bloodline she fought to protect. Cleopatra Selene's palace, once a sanctuary of authority and elegance, had become a maze of tension and fear. Every shadow seemed to whisper betrayal, every footstep hinted at danger. The secret she carried, a child conceived in silence, was now the weight pressing on her every thought. What had been a private hope had transformed into a perilous vulnerability, one that could undo her power and imperil her life. As her pregnancy advanced, the physical strain became impossible to conceal. Fatigue drained her once commanding presence. A faltering step or a brief pause could betray her secret. Whispers in the court grew louder, servants' glances sharper, and the subtle probing of envoys more insistent. Even Juba II, devoted though he was, could only offer limited protection, his own position tethered precariously between loyalty and political necessity. The queen's mind, always a fortress of strategy, now waged war against fear itself. She oscillated between hope and dread, imagining conspiracies in every corridor and treachery in every smile. The palace, a place of power, had become a cage where her body and mind were both prisoners. Nights were spent pacing, listening to imagined spies, and rehearsing contingencies for threats that might never come. But the mere possibility could undo her entirely. Then came the inevitable. A sudden collapse in her chambers, brought on by exhaustion and the relentless tension, revealed the fragility she had so carefully hidden. The midwife and attendants rushed to her side, but the queen's strength failed her. In those final moments, Selene's thoughts lingered on her family, on the child she had fought to protect, and on the cruel irony of her fate. After surviving assassins, conspiracies, and the treacheries of power, it was the intimate human act of carrying life in secret that claimed her. The palace erupted in chaos. Rumors raced through the halls. Some whispered of poison, others of betrayal, and a few feared that the queen's secret had summoned some hidden curse. Juba II, stricken with grief, tried to stabilize the court, but the damage was irreversible. The child did not survive. Cleopatra Selene's lineage, the culmination of generations of ambition, was extinguished silently, leaving a kingdom and a court haunted by loss and unanswered questions. In death, Selene became a legend, remembered not only for her intelligence and beauty, but for the haunting lesson her life embodied. Even the most powerful are vulnerable to human fragility. The queen, who had navigated treacherous politics, who had outwitted spies and preserved secrets, had fallen victim to the one force she could never fully control: her own body and the secret life growing within it. Her palace remained a silent witness, corridors echoing with whispers of the queen who died during a secret pregnancy. Cleopatra Selene's story, a blend of brilliance, fear, and tragedy, endured as a testament to ambition, secrecy, and the cruel unpredictability of fate. In the shadows of power, even queens are mortal, and even secrets, no matter how carefully guarded, can become instruments of doom.